Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm joined by Zara. Zara, how are you?
Good, Jordan. How are you?
Good. Enjoying this mini-series that we're putting together. So just to recap for anyone that's just joining us, we've already done 2 episodes. In the first episode, we've done a high-level how to start a business in 2025, where we spoke about starting with your why, identifying gaps in the market, and being able to validate those ideas. And in the second episode, we touched on all the fun stuff, business foundations, where we spoke about structuring, a bit about finance, how to manage the financials, and setting up the software that you need in order to get started. And we also touched on sourcing and product manufacturing. So today we're talking about generally the fun stuff, what everyone likes doing, and Zara's specialty, marketing. So looking forward to it. There's a lot to get through. But before we do start, question for you, Zara. What have you learnt in the last 3 months about business that you couldn't believe you didn't know any sooner?
Oh, that's a good one. Do you know what? I think it actually is like the importance of financials. Not that I didn't understand their importance, but I think I just have a better understanding of some of like the jargony words that I wouldn't have had like this time last year, which just come from running your own business.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. That's a good one.
What about you?
For me, it's something that I've consciously started to do, but say no to things. Like sometimes people will come to us and say, we need this done today or we need this done this week. And it was always yes. But now it's, just learning to say no. And it's such a cliche because you always hear it. But I don't know, for me, it's always been yes.
Yes.
And now it's just being able to say no to certain things and just unrealistic timelines. Because I think sometimes as business owners, we think we don't know where the next, that's not the right word. I was going to say you don't know where the next dollar is going to come from, but you don't want to upset potential clients.
Yep.
So I think that's something that I've definitely started to do. A bit more proactively as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. I like that.
Cool. So today we're going to cover some main talking points. In summary, creating brands and building an online audience, developing a digital marketing strategy suited to 2025 and the digital landscape.
Mm-hmm.
And we're also launching, also how to launch your business, marketing, pre-launch, and what comes next after that. So in terms of the first thing we're going to talk about, it's building your brand and specifically a unique selling proposition. So what is that and how does it all work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess the simplest way to put it is it's what makes your business stand out amongst your competitors. So unique selling proposition, also coined like USP. Essentially, it's what does your business have that is like your unique mechanism or your unique business structure or your unique service offering. Typically, it can go into like the how and the why more so than the what. But really, it is kind of what makes you and your business stand out in the crowded Australian market.
Yeah, cool. And what would be some examples?
So Nike, everyone knows Nike. Essentially, their kind of tagline, unique selling proposition is if you have a body, you're an athlete. And so it just means that anybody can get out there. It's encouraging people to get outside. And it kind of really goes into kind of their messaging and their branding. And then obviously they have athletes that they work with, but it really is encouraging everyone to kind of come into their brand. Shopify is another one, obviously relevant to kind of what we're talking about today. But their kind of tagline is Shopify is the platform that commerce is built on. So commerce being an exchange of money for goods. So that's a really handy one. And then Patagonia is the other one that I think is just a great business and a great brand in general. But their kind of tagline is we're in the business of the planet. And that really goes into their value proposition, the products that they're creating, their mission statement, the materials that they use in their products and their kind of sustainability ethos around the entire business. So it is a unique selling proposition because there's a lot of outdoors clothing brands out there, but the way that Patagonia do it is really different to everyone else out there. So if that is a value that you really align with in terms of sustainability, then that is probably going to be a brand that you're going to align more so with than other other alternatives or other
Yeah.
competitors.
Yeah, cool. And on those three businesses, they've got very distinct brand identities.
Mhm.
What is a brand identity and what does that mean?
Yeah, brand identity is essentially how you show up online, visually, how you communicate. So when we talk about brand identity, we talk about like your logo, your visual style, your tone of voice. So essentially obviously after you figure out what your point of difference is or what your unique selling proposition is, it's okay, how do we communicate that with people and how do we show up and how are people going to recognize us? So again, all of these brands like Nike, like Patagonia, they do have a very strong brand identity. And it really does go into kind of what we were talking about in the very first episode of this series, where we were discussing your mission and your purpose. And so your brand identity really does bring in your values and your mission and your purpose. But at a very baseline level, it's your logo, it's your branding, it's your visual style guides, and yeah, your communicative tone of voice.
Yeah, cool. And to go back to that first episode that you referenced, if I was to go and I've done all my values, my mission statement, and I know my why, what are the pros and cons of doing all this branding stuff myself or hiring a designer? What are the cost breakdowns? How does all of that work?
Yeah, and that's a good question. I think there's a lot of people that, particularly in early stages of business, try and bootstrap and essentially try and do it as much as they can or as cheaply as possible. And there's a lot of benefits to that. There's programs out there like Canva that essentially can help you develop your logo. They have an AI tool now that you can go in that can help you build your logo and your brand identity, which is really handy. So again, the cost of that, I don't know off the top of my head. It would just be like a monthly subscription, which is pretty affordable. Whereas obviously when you work with a designer, it's a much longer drawn out process. It can take anywhere between like 8 to 12 weeks for this whole process to take place. The benefit of it is you get a lot of different concepts. So if you were starting a new business and you didn't really know what color scheme you were after, you didn't really know what your logo could look like, you weren't maybe a super creative person, it could be an option. Obviously the costs are much higher. You're kind of looking 10, 20, 30 grand depending on the scope of work. So again, depending on kind of what your cash flow looks like, depending on what those early stage fundings look like for your business, it could be really handy to start with Canva. And then kind of once you're in a better financial position, then look at rebranding with a designer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's exactly what we did. Daniel created our logo, which you can probably tell. No offense, Dan, but designing isn't his forte. So he did it in a night, done. And only now, through almost 3 years in, we're engaging a designer to help with our branding. And it's just chalk and cheese. Cannot compare the two.
How's the process? Maybe we could walk through, because you're going through it right now.
Yeah.
What are the stages that you're moving through at the moment?
Yep. So a brief, would you call it a brief, where we're sent a bunch of questions to fill out with some, a bunch of questions. And then in those questions, I can't even remember off the top of my head, but some of our competitors, what do you like about them? What are your values? Do that. And then we had a second meeting. Would you call it a mood board?
Yeah, like a mood board and a concept.
Yep. So the designer presented all of that to us. What do you like? This is what it all means, and these colors and these styles. So we went through all of that, and then now we've sent back which ones we like. So to be continued. But it's been awesome process.
Yeah, that's great. I know you've got an expert that has experience in color theory, which is essentially what colors evoke certain emotions, which is really interesting too. That's why there's a lot of business out there that use blue, like a navy blue, because navy blue evokes like trust. So a lot of businesses use dark blue.
Yeah, and that's what Soap said. Accountants blue. So we're trying to do a bit of that, bit of purple. Anyway, it'll be the grand reveal. All will be revealed hopefully early next year. That's
exciting. What's the story behind purple? Because that's kind of been a part of Grey Space for a little while.
Yeah, no idea.
Okay. Design choice.
Yeah, it was one of the mistakes in business that I spoke about last year. Last week in the episode where we spoke about how we engage the designer, not even a designer, a marketing person to come up with our website. And he picked purple. So we're like, cool, purple.
Oh, stuck with it.
Yeah. Because at the start, bootstrapping for us anyway, it was the least of our concerns. It's just about getting our services right, making sure that what we're delivering is good, staffing's good, and in a financial position to operate. So, and I think that's the case with a lot of business owners with this type of stuff. It does fall to the back burner, So yeah, it's just important that you do address it when you do have some funds, or you can allocate money to go in and just get it done properly.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Cool. So everyone's favorite thing, marketing and developing a marketing plan. Why should you have a marketing plan or a marketing strategy?
I like to liken it to if you were going on a road trip and you had 0 directions and you had packed for the beach because you're like, yeah, I'm going on a beach holiday. I've got my swimmers, I've got my towel, I've got shorts, I've got a t-shirt. I'm set. I'm going to lounge on the beach. I'm going to have a great time.
Nice.
You've got no directions. You don't know where you're going. You don't have a map, and you end up the snow. It's cold. You're ill-equipped. You don't have the right gear. You don't have the right clothing. And so that's kind of how I associate a marketing strategy, is that you end up putting a lot of effort in a lot of different directions with 0 idea if it's the right place for you to be investing your time. If there's money, the right place to be investing your money. So it really is about giving you, as a business owner, giving you essentially a pathway or a roadmap to go forward and say, okay, yes, I'm confident that this is what I should be doing right now because this is what the ultimate goal is that I'm working towards. And these are the channels or the platforms or the strategies that are going to help me achieve that goal.
Yeah, cool. And how do you get on the right track, or you find that map? What's the starting position?
Yeah, I think the first thing is identifying your goals, like where you want to go as a business. And, you can start with like your big, hairy, audacious 24 months, 3 years, 5 years, whatever that looks like. I typically say in these early stages, don't go further than 2 years or 24 months. Let's kind of keep it within a realistic time frame that we can kind of visualize. And then once you've been in business for a little bit longer, you can kind of have the 5-year plan as well. But yeah, so what I would say is like, what do you want to do? Where do you want the business to be? How much money do you want to make? How many people do you want to impact? How many clients do you want to work with over the next 12 months? From there we go, okay, well, in order to do that, these are the things that we need to do in the next 6 months. Okay, well, in order to do that, these are the things that we need to do in the next 3 months. So from there, you end up breaking it down into these really digestible and actionable, essentially stepping stones to help you get there. And I think that's the thing, is like sometimes you might have a goal, you might have a revenue target, or you might have a number of clients you want to work with, whatever that might be. But if you don't actually know how you're going to get there, then you kind of end up scrambling. And that's where we see, through inflection, through the community, but also just through conversations that I have with business owners, that's where you see a lot of time, money, and energy has been invested in the wrong area.
Yeah, for sure. And on that comment of that big, hairy, audacious goal, do you start looking, say it's a year's time, and then do you really peel it back and start with your customer avatar?
Yeah, so I would start with, ideally, you've kind of figured that out before you've gotten to this stage. So in like episode 2, when we sort of spoke about your customer research and like your product research, throughout that, ideally, you're kind of finding out your target audience and your demographics. So, age, genders, traits, behavioral characteristics, what do these people enjoy doing, what are their interests, and then from that you're kind of building out your customer avatar. And that's how you can, as you're building out your strategy, you've got someone that you're basing it off. So you understand what channels, what social media channels they're using, if any, what are they, how are they communicating, how do they like to be communicated with. So then the strategy that you're building out for that big, hairy, audacious goal is as accurate as it can be.
And once you have that, you've got your avatar, how do we know what channels to focus on? Actually, specifically for 2025, what channels should we be focusing on?
Yeah, so video content is really popular. And the reason being, obviously, when TikTok kind of came out, the algorithm and the way that it siphons through content and the way that it rewards good quality content has started to see not necessarily big businesses, but businesses that just create really great, engaging content take off and do really well. And so the way that Instagram has essentially tried to compete with that is to build a similar process for their own algorithm. So as the long and short of it is Instagram Reels, TikTok videos, shorter form style content that's engaging, that's creative. It's not necessarily based on how many followers you have anymore. They've kind of been saying that for a little while, but there was an Instagram update that came through the app this morning that said, to essentially stop focusing on followers and to start focusing on content itself and engagement. And then the way that it works from there is if you have a lot of people engaging with a piece of content, that's telling the algorithm, whether it be TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, that's telling the algorithm, okay, hey, a lot of people are engaging with this. A lot of people are liking this. They're commenting, they're sharing it is a really big one. So sharing that content with other people. Okay, that's telling me that someone really values this because they're willing to send it on to somebody else. So it's really about creating video style content that really feeds into that.
And what type of content? Because I know there's all these different types of variations of videos. What should someone be aiming to do as part of their strategy?
Yeah, so a combination, typically we say build 3 kind of core pillars for your business. So there'll be like an educational, very brand focused pillar. Then there'll be quite an engaging, entertaining, a little bit more fun, sort of lighthearted. And then you've got more of like a heavy sales focused pillar. So when we talk about like the branded and educational content, that first pillar, it's really about the business, the founder, the product. And then when we talk about the entertaining and engaging pillar, it's about like behind the scenes content, the team, honest, genuine, kind of more raw style footage that shows the product in use or shows people just, behind it. There's a lot of team content, like employee generated content coming out at the moment. TBH Skincare and Kick app do it really well. They've got really incredible content. And then there's obviously like before and after sort of content that can be really fed into that conversion style content as well. And the reason, I think the thing that's obviously missed in the conversation is the reason that this style content works. And essentially when we had brick and mortar stores, we had the ability to walk in and build a relationship with the brand owner, the person behind the counter that we could talk to. We could find out, what products were right for us. We could have a bit of a conversation. We had that element of connection. Since moving into the e-commerce and the online space, a lot of that kind of relationship building and that connection has dropped off, but it's still something that innately humans crave. And so this style content helps to build relationships with the people behind the brand. So then you actually become quite affiliated with the person themselves. And it helps to build trust, which then also helps build credibility behind the product, or the service.
Yeah, cool. And specifically is it user generated? The one where staff make content? I always get confused, sorry.
Yeah, so employee generated content.
Yeah, employee generated content. I just find that it really resonates with me every time I see it. Like I could probably rattle off 4 or 5 businesses that do that just because it resonates. So super important to make that, to focus on one of those as your pillars. Now, what other marketing options or strategies can a new business start straight away?
Yeah, I mean, SEO is one. It can be quite complex and it can be quite technical, but I think for the sake of today, we'll keep it relatively simple. So there's a very solid understanding or a basic level of understanding. But essentially, when we talk about SEO, there's 3 types. So one is called on-page SEO, which is probably the one that most people are familiar with. There's something called off-page SEO, and then there's also technical SEO. So the technical SEO is a little bit harder for, unless you're kind of working with an SEO agency, it's kind of a little bit harder to implement yourself. On-page SEO is something a lot of people can do. There's a lot of tools out there that do it now. A lot of websites, whether it be Shopify or WordPress, actually have kind of like a ranking system. So it shows you what your on-page SEO looks like. But essentially it's optimizing, changing, editing, kind of tweaking your product pages, your landing pages or your web pages, and really focusing on quality content and also keywords that people would be searching for in Google or Bing or whatever their search platform is, and making sure that your meta descriptions are really accurate as well and subheadings and those kinds of things. So, but yeah, the most commonly spoken about one is on-page SEO, which is also where blogs kind of fall into it as well.
Yep.
And then there's off-page SEO, which is, it's a little bit more complex. It's essentially they're called backlinks, you could also call them like referrals from other businesses or other kind of websites out there sending traffic to your website. Typically, it can be a paid kind of thing. And then there's technical SEO, which is more, I guess, like the structural and technical components of your website, which is a little bit more complex. But on-page SEO is the one that most people will be familiar with.
And that seems to be the one that's the easiest to get started onto.
Yes,
that on-page SEO. And if someone did want to get started, what tools could they use to get started on this stuff?
There's a few different ones out there. Google Search Console is really handy and it's free. And that also brings in like search volume results as well. So it gives you an understanding of like what people are searching for and how it can contribute to your business. And then there's obviously SEMrush, which is a little bit more expensive, but you can also look at competitors and what keywords they're targeting. And then there's another one called Yoast. So WordPress uses Yoast. There's like a native integration. So it really just depends on what you're familiar with. But yeah, there's a lot of options out there. I think the other thing that people forget about is using like tools like ChatGPT and Gemini, not necessarily for the content itself, but to help with that ideation of content. So once you've kind of done your research and you've said, okay, well, SEMrush or Google Search Console or Yoast or whatever it is, I've figured out, okay, what the core keywords are that I want to target and what I want to build content around. And now I can use like one of these, AI, ChatGPT kind of engines, and I can go into it and say, these are the keywords. What kind of topics or blog topics could be really interesting for insert my key demographic? And again, you don't necessarily want it to create the piece of content for you because obviously, big issue number one, it's going to be in American English. And there's just going to be legitimate components of it that aren't accurate. But it can really help you to kind of get started.
Yeah, for sure. And another underutilized tool is YouTube in terms of learning. There's so much content out there on YouTube on how to get started with SEO. So I'd strongly suggest just jumping on SEO, how it works. And there's so much out there. And there's heaps of people that you can follow that I cannot remember off the top of my head. But that's how I learned about it, to be honest. It's YouTube. So strongly suggest that one. Now, what I would say is Zara's favorite form of marketing that gives you an infinite return. Email marketing. Now, you can correct me, but is it a 7 or was it a 10x return with email marketing?
It's like a 36 return.
36. There we go. Close to infinite.
Yeah. Again, on average, there's obviously highs and lows, but yes, it has the opportunity to return a lot when it's used accurately and when it's used correctly, and when you're implementing things like automations and flows. And I think something that could be really handy is you and I did do an email marketing webinar a couple of months ago. We'll link it in the show notes because it really dives into the benefits of email marketing, how to implement email marketing, our kind of top tips just to get started. But I guess from a very sort of high level top line kind of conversation, the kind of 3 benefits is that it's owned data, like the audience is yours. You're not relying on platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Pinterest, Google. It's a platform that people have actively chosen to subscribe to and to communicate with you. So there's a really strong interest there. You can segment and tailor based on demographics and behaviors that someone's done on your website or what they've purchased. So you can have really tailored conversations, which is really important.
Now, something that we've spoken about a few times on the podcast are lead magnets. How can we best use them and what are their purpose?
Yeah, so lead magnets, I think something that maybe gets missed is people just kind of create content and put it out there and ask for an email address for someone to subscribe to that piece of content. I think the thing that we need to remember is that it has to be really valuable content. It has to be things that you think your audience really wants to know or is actually going to get something out of, not just how can I get their email. At any point, anything that you're kind of sharing with your audience has to be really valuable. So essentially what a lead magnet is something that you put out there as a business that you know that your audience is going to be interested in, that they can say, hey, I like this free resource. And then ideally what happens is they kind of move through into your email marketing funnel. And then they start to become more acquainted with your business. And then over time, that becomes a converted client.
Yeah, cool. And when we are ready to launch, what are some good strategies pre-launch and launch as well, post-launch?
There's a lot of options.
Hit me with your best ones.
Yeah, so I think some things that work really well is building an email list. So again, going back to what we said about like the return that can be generated through this email marketing list. So if you can launch like a wait list, ideally, so you're kind of building that anticipation around your service or your product, getting a potential idea of how many people will be interested in it and how many people will be willing to pay for it. And then when it comes time to launch that product or launch that course or service, you've got a nurtured group of people that are excited and ready for it. And there's a guy called Daniel Priestley, which we've spoken about quite a bit on the podcast, but he is someone that talks about this really well. There's an incredible episode of Diary of a CEO that he's interviewing Daniel Priestley, and they really talk about this strategy and how it really helped. His case study is that he was creating a writing course, and he didn't know if anyone wanted it. So he did this wait list and essentially proved that there was a lot of people out there that really wanted this product. So a wait list is a really great idea. And then contests, giveaways. So early bird offers, essentially, is there like a group of beta testers that you could get together if you're launching an app and it's the first time you're using it, get a bunch of people in there, different demographics to trial the app, whether it's a course, get a bunch of people in there and use that beta testing group as a way of getting feedback about your business and what's working, what's not working, what can be better. So then when you do kind of launch bigger picture to everyone, you've got a better product. Obviously, social media, building hype through like social media campaigns, really getting on like trending content and audio and understanding kind of what's working in the space. And I think the other core thing I would say for the pre-launch is to make sure that you've kind of got some metrics set up so you can understand how successful your pre-launch has been. So for example, if we go back to the waitlist idea, do you want to get 20 people on this waitlist or do you want to get 100 people on this waitlist? And what does that data set look like? Typically you would want like at a minimum 30 people. Statistically, that's kind of what you need to get an accurate sample size. But yeah, everyone's obviously going to be different in terms of what makes sense for them in their business.
Yeah, cool. And then on launch, what are some strategies there?
So that's kind of where your email marketing list comes in. So that list that you've built out over time, then when you do launch the product, you can really effectively utilize these emails and you can kind of bring a whole bunch of people into your email list. And you can really communicate with them. Obviously, you've built that awareness, you've built that engagement, you've nurtured them, you've told them about the product, you've got them excited. So then when it's time to launch, you've got this kind of email series scheduled, ready to go. And then kind of implementing that across to social media as well. And then you can look at like paid advertising as an option. Cool.
And post-launch?
A really important post-launch is to think about how you can improve the product or the service for the better. Get as much feedback as you can, focus on building a community, and really just get as many people giving information back to you as they possibly can so you can improve the product for the better.
Yeah, cool. Good summary there. I mean, we've spoken about a lot of these topics throughout the year, but an interesting one that we did go through is the pre-launch and pre-launch, launch, post-launch strategies. I think there's a podcast episode there. That was a really good one. So just to wrap up and finalize, we went through building your brand, developing your marketing plan, and then pre-launch and launch strategies. And if you did want any questions answered on any of those topics, we do have a free community. So jump in, we'll answer all of your questions. And yeah, in the next episode, we're going to be talking through scaling and how to scale the business in 2025. So looking forward to it.
Yes, definitely. Thanks so much, Jods.
Thanks, Zara. Bye.
Thanks for watching this video on the Rask Network. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can get videos each and every day on business, finance, investing, and so much more.